Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's value-based pricing colony meeting with Andre Thomas and Liz Smith. My name is Sean Jardine, and today we're going to be talking about workplace culture, the culture in law firms, and why it's a good thing. Well, it's always a good thing to have a culture, I hope our speakers will be saying. But what do we do when things don't go quite so wrong? Right, Andre, would you like to say hello and tell the good listeners who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, good to see you all. Well, good to see you, Liz. Good to see you, Sean. Well, as you all know, my name is Andre. I'm the founder of a company called Thomas Tellman. We go into law firms and we help them with issues relating to how if they're struggling with attracting and retaining talent. And one of the key things that we do is to conduct a culture audit. And then we look at what solutions we can put in place to help them improve and align their culture. And then consequently, that helps them attract and retain talent.
Brilliant. And Liz.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Liz Smith, and I've been a legal headhunter for 22 years. And 22 years was spent running my own legal headhunting business called Amelia Bond. 3 weeks ago, I joined Bamboo Platform. And Bamboo are a suite of firms, and one of those being Carbon Law Partners, which is a consultancy practice. And so I'm working with the very wonderful Michael Byrne, who is the CEO of Bamboo, which obviously incorporates Carbon Law Partners. And it's official, I'm having an absolute blast. So
Good for you.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, Michael is a nice bloke. I know Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, nice. Good stuff.
It's lovely, really nice. So basically, I'm bringing oodles of experience to the table and having a lot of fun working across our brands, being a brand ambassador for all of them in time, but I'm in week 3, so I'm still working my way around them all. But it's a very, very exciting time. And it also enables me to come onto webinars like this, and rather than sort of sit here and talk about many years of experience of being an outsider looking in, and talking about the culture piece, what I hope to do is in time be able to talk about a lot of things that I am quite vocal about, but actually see it in practice. So it's one of the main reasons why I've taken on this role, is because I feel completely aligned with what Michael is doing within Bamboo. And so it taps into very much alongside some of the things I'm quite passionate about. And when lawyers ask me for my opinion and thoughts about culture, it is very much aligned with what we're doing at Bamboo. So I'm coming to this webinar today sort of with my many years of experience, but also as a sort of brand ambassador now for a group of law firms who are doing it differently and working very, very well collaboratively.
Okay, right. Well, let's go back to Andre. Andre, you mentioned a culture audit. That sounds very different. So, and when I was running my law firm, we certainly didn't have a culture audit. What is it and how does it work?
Well, the culture audit is gathering quantitative and qualitative data on your people, and ultimately looking at the elements that make up your culture. So we're talking about, so if we think about culture, we look at behaviors, we're looking at attitudes, we're looking at your values, you're looking at how people are communicating. When you understand that, it also we can start looking at productivity, we can look at retention rates, we can look at cost of hire, time to hire. And once we when you start gathering all of this data together, then we can start to formulate what culture you have and why.
Right.
And so, yes.
So talk me through what good and what bad looks like then on those audits when you do that and you've got that data. Because you've amassed all this stuff. What does a good one look like and what does a bad one look like?
Okay, so it's okay, culture in itself is fairly nebulous, but at the same time it can be measured. Right. And what we're looking for is alignment, understanding what your business objectives are and making sure that we've got a culture that matches it, that helps it meet the objectives. So, yeah, we can automatically say there's certain things that will cause toxic cultures, like, if people are being bullied or harassed or anything like that, then, that's immediate. But then its culture is very nuanced, and, people don't always express how they feel. And so, but if you are asking the right questions regularly and collecting data, you'll have a good understanding as to what the people experience is. And so, it's so a good culture is a culture that's aligned with your business. A bad culture is one where there's misalignment, if you want to call it a bad culture, but where there's misalignment and you're not entirely sure what your culture is, which is a big problem for a lot of firms. They don't quite understand it, and they don't quite understand how you can go about trying to improve it for the good of the business. And so, that's what I try to demonstrate when we do a cultural audit. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay. And coming to you then, Liz, you must come, in your years of being a headhunter and recruiter, you will have come across people who have left firms because of the culture. And
Absolutely.
what kind of horror stories can you share with us? And by the way, I would add, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to type them in the chat as we go along. Otherwise, I'll just be yakking away. But
I would love to hear some questions, and I'd also love to hear some sort of support, because I think what's very important here is, before I sort of give you some horror stories, I'm very mindful of the fact that whenever I talk about horror stories, lawyers by nature are very private people, and so it was probably one of the main reasons why I didn't post for so long, because I've got so much to share, but I'm also very mindful of that if I talk about a situation that is horrible that I've heard a lawyer share with me, they will think automatically that they're the only lawyer that's experienced it. Right. So if I then go ahead and post about such a scenario, I just know instantly that there's going to be somebody sat there reading that going, like, especially if it's somebody that has spoken to me in the past, whether it be like 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago, it'll be, I can't believe she's sharing that, and it's really hard, because I'm very sort of, I suppose, mindful of that situation, that I don't want to hurt anybody. But what I can say to anybody that's listening to this today is, sadly, a lot of the horror stories that I hear, I've heard time and time again. So they're not individual stories. And I think that's the really sad part. So, for example, lawyers who, when they were a trainee, they've been shouted at, and not just shouted at just with a partner standing over them at the desk, but across the room, across a crowded office, and because they've done something that they simply didn't know, because nobody had actually taught them to do something. I mean, there was a post recently, I can't remember the lady that posted it, but it was about the salutation. So it's sort of, they didn't use dear sirs, they said hi, hi client. But it was somebody that they probably had already started to spark a relationship with. And if the client is talking to them in that manner, so if they're saying, hi, Liz, then it's very natural for somebody to reply and go, hi, Helen, or hi, Sean, or whatever. And the fact that that partner in particular took real offence to that and decided to communicate with a trainee by shouting across a crowded room and telling them off for that. Well, there's a number of factors there. So one, how on earth is that trainee going to feel? Two, how abhorrent is it that the partner had that behaviour? But three, the whole office is seeing that behaviour. So it's a massive ripple effect. So that one individual in that office not only has undermined that poor junior, but has set the tone, right? So that, and then once that tone is set, then it's the ripple effect. So if somebody wants to ask for holiday, if somebody wants to ask to go and see their child in assembly, somebody wants to leave early to go to go and see a doctor, somebody wants to go and speak to that partner about IVF treatment, or just like you name it. Or what if somebody in that department wants to resign? And so the sad thing is, what I have found over my many years of experience is when lawyers feel they're in these environments, time and time again, what I come across is that it's the put up and shut up environment, because they're just scared. They're just too scared to get out of it because they feel trapped. And when they see the treatment of others, then they don't want to be in that toxic environment. They're sitting in it daily, but if it's not coming to them and they're not infected on a one-to-one, then it's just another day they've got through. And then someone like me comes along and tries to headhunt them, and I take them on that journey, which is really, really quite challenging for some of them. And do you know what I've had a lot in my career is the timing's just not right, Liz. And I've lost so many amazing deals, life-changing opportunities for lawyers. But it's when you hear those words, the time is just not right, usually over a text, after many months of, getting that relationship cemented. And I know a lot of the time I think, what don't I know? What have they not shared with me? What sort of environment is that person in? Now, I'm not speaking, I'm sure many lawyers might even be listening to this today going, I've spoken to Liz and I said those words to her, and it was just because it wasn't the right timing. But there are looking back, I can really say I would imagine that there's quite a significant amount of them that simply thought, I need this out of my life. It's just too stressful for me. I want to do it, I want to move, but I just can't make it happen. And we're coming back to that one individual, that one individual that has created that ripple effect. And that's what I think is, that's just one example. But there are many. I've had some horrendous resignations, absolutely awful. I've had lawyers marched off the premises after 5 years, of blood, sweat, and tears given to a law firm where they've made the firm huge amounts of money, and they've just been walked out, and the partner has dealt with it dreadfully. And of course, they've severed all ties. Then there's no going back, and a lot of lawyers actually do return to firms if the whole exit process has been done smoothly and professionally.
Yeah, I used to love it when I could get a lawyer that might have left us to come back, because they were worth their weight in gold to actually show the rest of the team, say, actually, maybe it wasn't, or the grass wasn't quite as green as I thought.
Yeah.
I remember one particular lawyer had left, and he'd gone to a firm and they made him a partner. And they'd had 3 partners meetings talking about the plants in reception. And he was thinking, oh no, I think I made a mistake here. And I've always believed in, keeping in touch with people. And, and I diarised up after 3 months to see how he's doing. And I just pinged him a message on LinkedIn, and it was just, I miss you.
Yeah. And do you know,
Sean? And he came back and just said, did you? And I said, yeah. And he came back,
Yeah. No hard feelings. You supported him on his way out, and you supported him on the way back. But what a fantastic PR exercise for you to get that guy back in.
Yeah. Andre, what comes across your this kind of area?
Yeah, it's interesting what you say there, Liz, about the partner that screamed at a colleague, a junior colleague, and made them feel really awful. And you also mentioned the fact that so many deals have fallen apart because the individual that you've been working with has decided to stay. And what tends to happen is that person will be what I would describe as possibly quietly quit. So they're in the job, they're not particularly happy, but you know what? They've decided that they're going to stay. And they're going to do what they can, but they're not busting a gut really. They're not really enjoying the environment that much. And they're probably just biding their time. And that quietly quit category that a lot of individuals find themselves in is harming firms. It's harming them big time. I saw a report by Gallup that says something like 75% of employees are quietly quit. It's costing the global economy 250 billion. So if you put that in context, for a firm, 2 out of 5 of your employees have quietly quit. And so, the pressure is on for them to understand, well, look, how, if we were to categorize our workforce, who's engaged, who's disengaged, and who's quietly quit. It's a really good exercise, I think, for firms to do, to know, well, okay, well, how much is this costing us?
Absolutely. I would also interject there, Andre, where you're looking at those that are absolutely, cemented into the business. I think that's a really interesting captive audience, because then you've got to look at what have they got in common. Actually, are they all a bit peculiar, or are they actually really good characters? And if they're really good characters, then they need to be the absolute ambassadors of the business, and they need to be freed up to do, especially in a law firm, because you might, again, being a headhunter, most people say no to me. So a lot of lawyers are actually happy in their job. So, that's to be rejoiced. And that's something that I've said many times, that I've spoken with some amazingly passionate lawyers who, you'd have to drag them out kicking and screaming to leave their firm, because if you cut them in half, it's their firm that runs through their veins. And those are the ones that, if I were a senior partner in a law firm, I'd be thinking, let's just see how it's possible to free up that person and put them in a pivotal role. They would fly in a sort of a, I don't know, people champion, head of people or head of culture, or something that I call them the gluers. Those sorts of and those people, especially when you do your research, Andre. As I say, those people that really are, the key supporters of the business. That could be somebody at the equity level, or it could be somebody that works in the post room. Right. But they're all gluers, and put them to work, give them responsibilities, sit them on the committees that you're talking about, Andre, about these communication committees, so that because they will by nature be infectious characters, because they sing and dance about the business that they're part of. Right. And they're the sort of people that could be very much put in the room with the quiet quitters and get a bit more out of them, have a bit more stimulating conversation to figure out why they're quiet quitters, and sort of address that in a very subtle way, rather than, saying we've done the analysis and we know that you're not very happy. It's about, trying to make them feel like they're part of a team again. It's the classic example where when somebody says to me, hybrid working's not working, and you say, why? You say, well, we're supposed to be in every, I go in one or 2 days a week, but when I go there, most of my team aren't in. There's no collaboration. There's no joined up thinking about, well, actually, we should all make an effort to be in on a Tuesday or Thursday. Yeah. And what could we do that's fun to make it worthwhile? And me, dolling myself up and getting myself into an office for 2 days a week, and all of that. It's just like, it's really simple stuff to get people gelled again.
Well, the thing about, if you say, look, this stuff is common sense, that what my nan used to always say to me is, the thing about sense is it's not that common, and and it's when I work with firms on the value-based pricing stuff, I always do an anonymous survey with the whole firm. Give me the data, and I never tell the managing partners who says what. I don't even know. It is anonymous. Everyone gets the same link. And one of the questions I ask is, does your firm make you work for clients who are unprofitable and too difficult to deal with? So are you working for not very nice clients? The answer is always yes. The lowest percentage I've had of yeses in a firm is 53% of the staff. And the highest was 96% of the staff. Wow. And I'm a great fan of saying to law firm owners and managing partners and partners, we've got to deselect some of our clients, because you don't need every bit of work that comes through the front door. You need more than your fair share of the good stuff. And a big firm that you would certainly know, I did a proposal for recently, and the CEO rang me up and said, Sean, just decided to let you know we're not going to use you. I said, that's absolutely fine. He said, would you like to know why? I said, yes. And he said, because you're going to tell my partners that we should not act for clients who are unprofitable and too difficult to deal with and are awful to my staff. I said, yes, I am going to tell you that. He said, they won't want to hear it. And I just, it'd be lovely. I must go and have a look at their website, see how many vacancies they've got at the moment, because I think the two would be linked, and that's one of the things. And I think leadership, and, come back to you, Andre, is really leadership and culture. That must be where it starts, isn't it?
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah.
Completely at the top. If the managing partner, the CEO, the senior leadership team aren't understanding the importance of culture and behavior from them, that sets the right tone for the organization, then it all falls apart. And I certainly couldn't work with a firm that doesn't recognize that, because it would be impossible. It'd be totally impossible. You've got to have the desire to want to put your culture front of, you know, your organization. And when you do that, you see massive benefits, huge.
Yeah. When I took over at my CEO rollover, we had the big kickoff meeting. I had the partners, all the heads of departments, senior managers there. And I had 3 bottles of champagne on a table. And I said, could someone name 5 Premier League football teams? And remarkably, somebody could. I gave them a bottle of champagne. I said, could someone name 5 films that have won Oscars? Somebody could. I said, can anybody name the 5 values of Brethertons?
Oh dear.
Tumbleweed.
Tumbleweed.
And it was 4 minutes, 30 seconds before one of the managers had a go and got 4 out of the 5.
Yeah.
And my whole point was, look, we'd had these values, but it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You couldn't even remember them. You know, you couldn't live them if you couldn't remember them. Yeah. And so that became a bit of a thing for me, that one of the questions was always, I'd wander around, say, what are the values? Which value is most important to you and why? And the values were, it was ACE at PE was the acronym. We value ambition, we value customer, we value excellence, we value personal development, we value each other. And so that was it. And I remember about a year later, it was always one of the promotion questions was, which is your favorite value and why does it resonate with you? And I remember a lady going for a senior associate role who'd been with us a number of years. I said, which is of all the values, which is the most important to you? Why does it resonate and why? She said, I knew you were going to ask me that. I said, brilliant. I said, great. I said, which is it then? She said, I can't remember them.
Oh dear.
I didn't promote her.
Oh, bless.
Her. And I just thought, what, you know,
yeah.
You know it's going to happen. If you've been around the firm long enough, you know that's a standard promotion interview question. And you couldn't be bothered to remember the 5, or at least make one up, or blag it, you know. And so I just thought, no, I can't.
I think that's a reflection on her, not yourself.
Well, I would hope so. I would hope so.
Yeah, for sure.
I think values should be, you know, the sort of part and parcel of your day-to-day job. So, you know, it's like it shouldn't really be that difficult to, you know, it's not like you're at school and you've got to answer the you know, the 5 values, or what. It's more about, it's more of a reflective question, really, because surely he or she should be thinking, well, you know, I come to work with you know, a zest for life, or zest for client care, and you know, my value is to the service I provide to my clients, you know, the attitude I bring to the table with my colleagues. You know, I'm a strong ambassador for the brand of my firm and what we stand for, and you know, what sets us apart. And it's sort of like that should be it's more about, it's partly him or her sort of selling themselves, but it's also, values should be relatable, shouldn't they? You know, rather than just some buzzwords. It's got to be actually, are these values, you know, can they be relatable? Can you take a snapshot of the workforce and think, is this really relevant to the workforce that we currently have?
I don't know. I think if I tell you one story that made me very happy about those particular values, and it was when I'd given everybody a card that said carte blanche on it, a white card. They came into work, and so they've all physically got carte blanche to challenge anything in the business. Because I used to say to people, the management team don't know everything that's going on in an organization with 240 people. You do. Tell us, and then we'll put it right. And I had one, it was a trainee. No, she wasn't even a trainee. She was doing her Part 2 law exams remotely. And she said, Sean, I'd like to have a carte blanche meeting with you, and I'd like to bring a friend. So absolutely fine, bring a friend. And she said, I'm doing my solicitor's final exams part-time while I'm studying. And I have to do 10 a year. And I have to take those days as holiday. And other people, if you're doing your Silex exams, you get a day off study leave and you get a day off to do the thing. And she said, and she took a deep breath and she said, it doesn't value ambition because I'm truly trying to get better. She doesn't, it said, it doesn't value customer because I'm doing this because I want to be a better lawyer. It doesn't value excellence. It doesn't value personnel development, and it doesn't value each other. And I kind of hugged her. I didn't know no lawyer was hugged in this story, right? And I just said, I didn't know that we had that policy for people doing their part 2, their professional exams. I didn't know that. And then I spoke to the head of HR. I said, did you know this? She said, well, yeah, but that's always. I said, but it's not right.
Mm.
And then she said, oh, well, what do you want to do? I said, give them all the days off. It's just that, it's nonsense to have a day's holiday as an exam and not do the study. And so that's what we did. But all of it was, A, we didn't know, and B, she felt she could hold the values, whatever it was, hold me to account on them. And I think if you've got something that at least people can buy into, hopefully they buy into it, and then hold management to account. Because if you're, I wasn't valuing ambition. I certainly wasn't valuing personal development, but I didn't know. And once you tell me, I can do something about it. But that's an old war story. She's about 8 years qualified now, that girl.
But if she'd been in a sort of like a committee or invited to come along to a little session at lunchtime or something, a round table where it's an opportunity to collate information, maybe that could have been managed by HR, for example, or somebody that's responsible for people, then that's the sort of thing that could be fed back, and it should be a safe environment where there's an agreement in place that it's all fed back anonymously and people can share these sorts of this information freely. I would imagine the person in HR was probably quite embarrassed at the time because ultimately it was an HR sort of issue, really, and they should have been aware of like the pressure that's put on these guys that are coming through their training and doing it in a different way. And giving them that flexibility to be able to study whilst doing the job.
Oh, absolutely. And psychological safety in law firms, I think, is a big thing to make sure that if people want to question things, that all of a sudden it's not career limiting in any way. Because as a general rule, lawyers don't like their business model or indeed anything they do being criticised. And, I'm a great believer in that, I bring my ignorance to situations usually, and I can ask some questions, but what you want to do is find a resolution and find something that's a bit better than what we started with. That's all.
We all want to learn, don't we?
Oh, God, absolutely. Andre, anything else you want to add, my friend?
I tell you, with regards to values, I find that it always tends to fall down on just poor recruitment. And, poor recruitment. You've not. So all too often, I was a recruiter. You're a recruiter. You were a recruiter, Liz. In previous life, I used to do the same as well. And what I've found is that, like, when managers are interviewing, they're looking for skill, they're looking for experience, and they don't really ask questions about, making sure they've hiring somebody that has got the right kind of attitude and behavior that they're looking for that will fit well within the firm. And so, it's often they are having to react to a situation where they need to fill a vacancy quickly. They probably only have a handful of, one or two candidates to choose from, and they have to go with what's kind of available. And as a result of that, it's having a problem with, well, they're not talking about values, even how, what it's like to work in this firm. Then from day one, you've got a problem. And the situation is just going to get worse as the longer that the person is within the firm, that it doesn't really quite fit. So I think, when it comes to your recruitment, it's important, I think, to have a really proactive recruitment strategy to make sure you've got more people to interview that you think are right, and ask the right questions. So it's skills important, of course, experience is important, of course, but even more important is whether this person really has the right kind of attitude and values that align to the firms. And if not, no matter how experienced, no matter how skilled, don't hire them.
That must be like, it's been, you know, it's just been me and the inflatable penguin for like 3 years now. So it's a long time since I've recruited anybody. But I keep hearing there's a battle for talent, battle for talent. Are law firms being presented with lots of choice, or is it we just need somebody with a pulse because that happens to be the only person that might have applied? You know, what's happening down actually at the coalface, do you find?
I think that there's a problem with not necessarily. I feel that the way how firms generally recruit, it's reactive is how I would describe it. It's when I need to fill a vacancy, I start the recruitment process. And I'm like, well, my approach whenever I help a firm with regards to recruitment, after we've dealt with culture piece, etc., then it's about understanding what your value proposition is and selling that and doing it regularly, constantly, identifying individuals that you think will be right for your organization and being far more proactive about how you're going to go about trying to reach them and engage them and help them join or ask them if they'll be interested in coming for an interview. So you need to be more creative, I think. You need to be really more innovative as to how you go about doing that. But there's lots of ways of how you can engage people in a really proactive way to find out whether they'll be right for your organization.
Mm.
And that's the view that I take with regards to recruitment. It's what tends to happen. You advertise a vacancy and you just wait for somebody, the right person at the right time is ready to interview. And I think that's poor.
Liz, what do you think is best practice for recruitment then?
Well, a number of things. So I echo what Andres just said. I feel passionate about the fact that recruitment should have a place around the table. So, you know, that's the first thing. So that's one of the reasons why I've been attracted over to Bamboo, because they're really prioritizing talent. And so I think talent can be aligned very closely with HR, but most importantly with marketing and BD. So, you know, if you're doing a lot of, if you want to, you know, really go out to the marketplace and show your values, beliefs, your culture and all of that, if you think that you are working very hard on that as a business and you think that your management team are absolutely on board with investing in that and shaping it, then you've got a load to share. You've got a lot of great stories to tell, great wins, you know, happy folk, going back to that sort of those ambassadors that I talked about earlier, you know, rise and shine, let them shine, let them go out there into the world, let them do, you know, let them get on social media, talk to them about events, what they're doing and so on. You know, do Q&As with people internally so that people can, you know, when people start at the firm, you know, just to talk about what's attracted them to the business. And then slowly but surely, what you tend to find is that talent becomes far less reactive, and it's all sort of aligned with everything, the whole machine of how the business is working. So if BD and marketing are doing something over there, then it should be completely aligned with what recruitment is doing as well, because it should sort of, I think it's a really powerful message if a firm is doing really, really well in actually talking about what they have to offer, what a great place they are to work, and that BD and marketing are doing things around recruitment, about, you know, attracting talent and so on, so that they then become actually quite an attractive proposition to lawyers if we're talking about the legal sector. And what you tend to find then is those sorts of firms get a lot more direct approaches, and ultimately that's what that firm needs. But to actually deal with direct approaches, you need to have a pretty slick internal talent team that are, you know, really on the ball, that engage very quickly with those direct approaches, and give that individual a really, really nice feel about the firm. And I think what I've experienced over many years is that candidates will come to me and say, you know, if I've headhunted somebody, you know, there's been many a time when that lawyer said, oh yeah, no, I don't think I'd be interested in that firm. And you think, well, why not? Well, actually, I applied to them sort of 2 years ago and they didn't get back to me. So I just don't think they're interested in me. You know, and it's really frustrating as a headhunter because you think, oh, bugger, you know, my client didn't tell me that. So you go back to the client and say, did you know that this person applied to you? No. Because the head of real estate never found out, because that application just went into a big black hole, and you know, it just wasn't, they weren't reactive enough. So there's you know, it's about sort of sharpening your tools really when it comes to talent acquisition, because you know, it really is about, do you really take it seriously? Do you want to invest in it? Then actually you just need you know, a really hot team, and or that team could be one person that literally has you know, has a responsibility that any direct application just get some sort of acknowledgement so that they feel like they're in it. And then going back to not being a reactive recruiter, if you take a cross section of the amount of vacancies that come up, okay, there's going to be a certain percentage that are to do with growth, you know, so departments get busy and they need to grow. But how many of those roles are because of maternity and retirement and, you know, those sorts of roles where actually there's no reason why they can't be strategically planned and budgeted for. And then when you go out to market, you can take your time over those. You can be really careful and quite selective because you've got time on your hands. You've got, you know, you can work in unison with the person that's perhaps going to be going on maternity leave, and they feel really encouraged that you're looking to perhaps grow the team once they're gone, but they don't feel threatened because you're just recruiting somebody to hold the fort, but also to strengthen the team. And they'll keep in touch with them all the way through their maternity. You know, they're not going to go and promote others in the department whilst you're on maternity leave, which happens an awful lot of the time. And again, that person that's perhaps looking at retirement, you know, so often retirement isn't talked about openly. And you know, I've been in meetings for many times in my career where I've been called in to do a replacement for a retiring partner, and you know, maybe the HR manager's there and the retiring partner sat in the room, and I look over at the retiring partner and I can see that their eyes are a bit watery, and I think they don't want to be here. They don't want to be replaced. They don't want to actually even go, but no one's actually talking to them about it because contractually, you know, there's come a time, or they're starting to feel like they're being turfed out. And it's all a bit uncomfortable, you know, and I just think that could be a really good opportunity to talk strategically about this. You know, when does that partner actually want to retire? Do they want to retire? Could they take on a different role? Could they take on a mentoring or coaching role? Give them an opportunity to still be fulfilled in their career, and perhaps manage it when the time is right for them to exit, rather than feel like they're being pushed out. And all of that stems back into what the culture of the business is like, you know, how they treat people. You know, if you've got quite a top heavy law firm where you've got a significant number that are over the age of 50, and that sort of behavior is happening, then it's quite unsettling really, because then you're going to have some senior people in your firm that perhaps are feeling a little lost and are feeling a little, you know, forgotten about.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can see how it all links, right? You know, culture is critical to your recruitment, and recruitment is critical to your culture, to make sure you get the right people in. And so you can't separate the two, I don't think. Otherwise, you're really going to set yourself up to fail. And so yeah, it's really important. As I said, and I think in your experience, and certainly in mine, it's all too separate. Firms will have a clear budget for wining and dining clients and prospective clients, but the same focus is not on their culture and on their people. And you know, there needs to be a shift in thinking, particularly for those medium-sized firms, those ones that are like, you know, anything from about 80 to 250 people. You know, they're the ones that are going to get squeezed, and more so in light of the, you know, the rise of consulting models now. So for them to go and attract, you know, the really good partner or senior associate, they're going to have to think really creatively, because they can now go and work for Gunnar Cook or Setfords or one of those guys and
Or
go
carbon.
70 to 80% of whatever they bill. So, you know, it's your culture that's going to really make the difference as to why they're going to want to come and work for you for potentially less. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's some serious thinking that needs to be done for those firms.
We had a great session last week. It was a possibility thinking session, and the question was, how can we possibly make our law firms more attractive to associates so they aspire to be partners? And I'm a great fan of possibility thinking. And there was only about 5 of us on the call. One of them was a guy from Poland. And he came up with some just great ideas that, and I put it into a post on LinkedIn, but it was really, really fascinating to find other things and thoughts about how you can make your place a great place to work, to, you know, to encourage people to, yeah, I want to stay here because I like the culture, I like what happens and things that we do. Because, you know, if we were to say what's wrong with law firms, we could fill a whole week of webinars like this. But I think it's if we can start turning that question on its head and saying, what does good look like and how do we achieve it? And let's face it, we can follow and copy other industry sectors who do stuff better than law.
Can we?
Can we?
Can we? Can law firms do that, Sean?
Well, can they copy best practice elsewhere?
Well, can they see themselves as a corporate business?
Oh, well, you know, I'm a great believer in training people. And one of my partners used to always say to me, "Oh, Sean, well, you know, we train all this, but what happens when they leave?" And I used to always pinch Richard Branson's quote, who, when asked that, what happens if we train people when they leave? He said, "It's worse if you don't train them and they stay." You know, and it's that kind of stuff.
Right.
So let's you know, have a training budget and spend it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what we want. And the thing is, when you start looking at, you know, millennials and Gen Zers, and, you know, and we've got to start thinking about what the alpha generation are going to be like that. Training is really, really important to them.
It absolutely is.
And that's where lawyers and equity partners are now, I'm out of it now, but that, you know, we've got to get over ourselves where we start thinking that's our profit that we're giving away.
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead of your business and let's look after our people. Right, we've got to 4:45. I'm going to bring this to an end. There's no question in the group. So hopefully the two people who are sitting on here have enjoyed it. I really hope you have. And I hope those who are listening to this later on in the weeks and months ahead enjoy it as well. Liz, thank you very much for your time. I can't remember the name of your organization, and you're not allowed to say it again because you said, guys. Andre, just tell the good folk the name of your organization again, because everyone knows that Liz is at Bamboo. So, Andre, name of the business?
Yeah, Thomas Tellman.
And if they want to reach out to you guys, they can do this via LinkedIn, I assume.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, folks, thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you in the colony next time.
Lovely. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Andre.
You too, Liz.
Bye-bye.